Linda. All right, I want to call this meeting to order, the Capital Strategic Planning Committee special meeting. I'd like to call it to order. The time is 6:30. The pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, roll call. What's that up for?
Joe Sigarano.
John Olson.
Ian Smith. Peggy Ward. Linda Fedor.
Mike Brown.
Christy Casper. Ariana Landry. Gary is out on the boat, and I don't know where Rick Marcello is, so I think he's aware of it. All right. Is there anybody here that'd like to speak for citizen participation before we get started? One what? One choice? Okay, so, all right, presentations tonight we have are Mr. Paul Brenton, the superintendent of schools, and Kevin Cunningham, the first selectman. Paul, you pick the short stick.
No, don't worry.
Everybody has their presentation in front of them, so you can either turn around or pick through the call.
Am I going up there?
No, just grab that microphone, I guess. It's a free one.
So before I actually go into the capital plan, I wanted to explain to this committee and to the public a little bit about how school construction is funded and how capital improvement is funded, because it's something that I think most people in the public don't know. So before I actually go into the 5-year plan and then talk about the 2 different plans that you have, I put together a very brief PowerPoint to explain what I think is really important information. I'm going to be cueing Mr. Cunningham, who's agreed to be my prompter, and I'm going to be his while he's going. This is a fantastic new projector that's been put in here. I know it's been 3 years in the waiting. So Mr. Cunningham, if you want to go to the next slide. So I'm going to talk about 4 different things here. The first thing I'm going to talk about is end-of-life infrastructure and how things are flagged for end-of-life in the reports. When I'm talking about that, what specifically I'll be talking about is when we take a look at the reports, we look at a roof. If it's a 30-year roof, they time it as end-of-life at 30 years. If it is a piece of HVAC equipment that's timed out at 20 years, they time it as end-of-life at 20 years. Now, as you know, Moosup Elementary School was the first all-electric elementary school in the state. We have parts of that building that are working on original heaters from the 1950s. Our reports would time those as end-of-life, even though they are currently working and running those based on age. The second thing I'm going to talk about is the new fast-track process. There was one time when you could do requests to the state and everything had to be approved 2 years in advance. That's no longer the case. And I just want to speak to what that looks like for projects. And then you're going to hear me over and over again say 2 different percentages. One of the percentages you're going to hear me say is 74.3%. 74.3% is the state's reimbursement rate for priority and non-priority construction grants. The other thing you're going to hear me say is about 79.5. That's our E-rate reimbursement. And I'll be talking a little bit about project reserves. The other piece I'll just be talking about is the sensitivity of time and how that works, and we'll kind of go through. So Mr. Cunningham, if we can talk to you. So you're going to hear me use 2 different terms. You're going to hear me talk about priority projects and non-priority projects. A priority project would be a major renovation. So if this committee chooses to say, make a decision that we were going to try to consolidate elementary schools, which the reports you have say would require adding 16 classrooms onto Shepherd Hill Elementary School, or 2 floors of 8 classrooms, that's a major project. That's a priority project. A priority project requires legislative approval vote. That means that we have to submit that to the state. We have a 10 to 12 month wait for commitment on a priority project, and there's a strict annual deadline for those projects of June 30th. There are now, however, Non-priority projects. Non-priority projects are things like HVAC and roofs. And because HVAC is now a non-priority project, and that's a change, it used to be a priority project, the Department of Administrative Services, or DAS, throughout this report, can do those on a rolling monthly submission. And approvals for those can be secured in weeks or months, with which used to take 10 to 12. So that's a change. So what's the difference between a priority project and a non-priority project, if you want to make the change? So priority projects are major construction. That would be something like construction of a new school building or completely new facilities from the ground up to replace outdated buildings or accommodate growth. If you hear about a school district taking an old school and doing a renovate as new, that's essentially gutting the old building and redoing it. That's a priority project. Or major extensions or alterations, such as adding a wing or a gymnasium or adding a new auditorium, that would be a priority project. But non-priority projects are a lot of the things we've tackled in Plainfield, and those can be approved on a monthly basis by the state now. That is a roof. That is replacing windows. It could be a code violation or a targeted upgrade, something like ADA compliance. We may get approval for things like fire and safety systems. HVAC systems are now, as of the last 12 months, non-priority projects. So are things like oil tank replacements, disposing of old underground or above ground oil storage tanks. Those things fall under non-priority. So when we put our plan together, the plan that the Board of Ed put together avoids the slow lane. We avoid the priority projects because we don't have in our proposal a major project. If there is a major project, in my opinion, that's a town and board decision, and that's really why you're here, to have those pieces. Because those are tied to a June 30th window, and if we miss a June 30th window, that triggers a full year delay. They're also tied to General Assembly approval, which means that if we're going for a priority project, I'm calling up Heather Summers and Dolphine and a variety of other people, Doug Dubinsky, to try to get those items pushed through. The risk of those is if we have leaking roofs or failed HVAC, we really can't wait for the legislative session. So we try to go through non-priority projects. Kevin, you just want to go to the next one, which are just more efficient. Those are actually approved directly by the DAS commissioner. We know in 60 to 90 days. And this allows bidding during the optimal contractor cycles. For anyone who is a contractor, you know there's better times to be going out for bids than other times. Kevin, if you just want to keep going. So when you look at our plan, we moved off of, if you were to look at this capital plan 3 years ago, there was HVAC indoor air quality grants that are now part of the standard non-priority list. So the strategy that we've moved forward with is to submit the neediest HVAC applications together, try to lock in that 74.3% rate, and then expedite construction. What that means for taxpayers is that means for every dollar spent in this capital plan on a non-priority project that qualifies, the town of Plainfield is paying approximately 26 cents. 25.7% for what those projects are. Now, if you hear me talk about technology or E-rate projects, and E-rate projects would be things like our servers. For that, our reimbursement rate is actually much higher. It's almost 80%. That money is done in a 5-year cycle. So if we take a look at what that looks like, we are approved in the next 5-year cycle for approximately $413,000. We would be paying a little under $85,000 for what that is, because that's 80% reimbursement. When we think about eligible and ineligible costs, these are all outlined by the state directly on their website for anyone who's interested. Construction, labor, materials, those systems, professional design fees are typically eligible. Local permit fees are not, non-educational site work, and architectural luxuries. What falls under an architectural luxury? If you look through our capital improvement documents, and we actually just got a new quote for it, the track at Plainfield High School. Our new quote for that job, were we to have it done this summer, is $735,000. to take up the track, fix everything under the track, and to lay down a new track. That's considered by the state to be non-educational site work. It's not part of the building. We can still deliver gym classes without doing that piece, so we would carry that full load of what the track repair would be. It would be similar for tennis courts and other items. It's slightly different if we build a new school, but for that particular repair, that's not something that's particularly eligible. So, what's the funding mechanic? Here's the important things. Go to the next slide, Kevin. The funding mechanic is that the town must authorize 100% funding before I can go to the state and go to DAS and go for that reimbursement. They want to know that we can afford to do it. It's also quite a copious process on our side. They require proof of the local legal capacity to fund the work before committing to the state reimbursement dollars. Kevin, you want to go to the next one? So how does that work? We actually can get paid as the project is going. We don't actually need to work and have the project completed and hold that money. If we do non-priority projects, it's called a progress payment system. That's actually what the state calls it. Contractor submits the monthly invoice to us. We pay the invoice using local funds. We then submit the invoice to the state, and the state wires back the 74.3 to Plainfield, and they tell us 30 to 60 days, provided we did the paperwork correctly. So if we take a look at the documents in front of you, if we were to look at two HVAC projects, if we combine two HVAC projects at $3.7 million, the local share of that is actually $950,000. So we're getting almost $4 million in projects for $950,000 when we take a look at where those are. That's our net responsibility. That's the difference when we look at state reimbursement. So what's required before we can do that, just so people know, there is a series of steps you have to do. You have to finalize the technical documents. DAS has to approve them. You have to have local approval of plans and specifications. The state outlines that. And we have to go through the state portal and regularly look at those target dates for submission. So when you take a look at what's in front of you, you have a document that looks like this. That's our 5-year capital strategic plan. And I want to highlight a couple of things on that plan, because this plan has been changed a little bit just to make sure that people understand the way we've approached it. The capital strategic plan for next year does not have us taking on a major project or a major bond or going to them for reimbursement. Part of the reason why I did that is I don't know how long the work of this committee will take. And it would be very presumptive of me to assume that you were going to make decisions that impacted next year's fiscal budget. Our recommendation to this committee is that we take a look at this in terms of projects and reimbursement based on the needs of what we have. So the first project that we believe needs to be tackled is the HVAC systems, which are at Plainfield Central Middle School and Plainfield Memorial School. Now, PMS got some work done after the fire, you are aware. However, those systems are pneumatic systems. That is where, and by pneumatic systems, I mean that it's actually a pneumatic system at PCMS that runs those pieces. Mr. Kadowski, who's here, can tell you that we actually are seeking individuals right now to do work on those panels, to do work just on the fans, and then looking at the pneumatic heaters. But that system is fully at end of life. We are creating our own parts to generate that system, and Plainfield Central Middle School's HVAC system is the neediest in the district. It is beyond life. So our goal is in 27-28. As you notice, we've put in HVAC systems 4 through 8. When we take a look at where those pieces are, we've placed in priority projects related to what we have. I also, if you look to the final piece of that, take the time to identify, you'll see some things at the bottom, that bond planning would be needed for these. So I recognize that we can't tackle those unless we decide to go to bond for HVAC. I also note that E-rate will cover a portion of the technology costs. And I highlight that we have a new grant, which is the world's worst acronym. It is DRIP. That stands for It is the worst acronym in the world. It stands for the District Repair and Improvement Program. I wish the state had thought of a better acronym. These things happen. When I was a young assistant principal, I formed the Credit Recovery After School Program. That acronym was not popular either. But these things happen. That's our major bond project here. Year 2, when it says HVAC 912, what that is really looking at HVAC 912 is that Plainfield High School, when it was built with boilers that were not new. They did in fact come from a previous place, so there was some aging on them. We do need to replace one of the boilers at Plainfield High School, and you can see that that's loaded directly into this piece. Again, that particular project there at Plainfield High School in year 2 is a project that would be eligible for that 74% reimbursement. Looking at year 3 is when I've put in our projected requested that we would tackle those field projects because I know that we should be making a plan to replace the track. It is probably the thing that members of the community talk to me most about is if we could do a track project. So I had that in year 3 with the idea that we would be tackling the elementary schools in the final year. The reason why I push those elementary schools to the final year is I think there's a lot of discussion about elementary schools among this group. I'm happy to share my opinions about the values of our programs and what we have, and about the rich community at our elementary schools. I had a friend who was trying to save a library in their town, and they're doing things like they've turned their library into not just a library that lends books, but they do a lend anything now, like Canterbury does, where you can lend a power washer or other pieces. They're trying to make their library such a building that's such a part of the community that it would be impossible for people who want to let go of that library. I would say to the members of this community that if you've never been to Moosup on Halloween, or if you've never been to the summer events in Moosup where we do movie nights and other things in that community, if you've never been to the tag sales in that community, I believe we already have that culture at our elementary schools, and I think it's something that a lot of towns would fight to have, and I think there's tremendous value in that. Now, this is a 5-year plan, and it's different than the giant binders that you have and the giant reports that are online. So to explain the difference there, and Mr. Cunningham, if you could just go one more, you also have this. And what this is something that my Board of Education gets, which is our capital improvement priorities. These are things that we've identified that if we could do now, it's at the very, very end of your 5-year capital plan. These are items that we would tackle now. And then I did put down the track down there because I'm certain that somewhere in the community there's someone watching this who wants to make a donation to the town of Plainfield to cover our new track, and I'm going to continue to make that pitch. But we have things that we would tackle now in the kitchens for freezers, refrigerators, walk-in heaters. We have exhaust fans that we would look at on the rooftop. All of these items based on where we are end of life cycle. Many of them are being tackled in next year's budget. Not all of them are. So let's talk about how we have budgeted for projects and how we budgeted for these projects. Everything in that 5-year capital plan for next year is in my budget document that we presented to the town. So when you take a look at the schools and that number, which is approximately 255,000, 256,000, all of that is in our municipal budget. When we've had larger things that we've had to tackle, we've largely gone into our reserve. We know we have about 180,000 coming out of last year's budget that's going to go into a reserve for the schools. That's how we've tackled a lot of those other projects. And we're going to be tackling those through DAS and trying to get reimbursement to offset some of those costs. This is now my 5th year in Plainfield. For those who keep calling me the new guy, I guess I am, compared to many people in the room, but this is now my 5th year. We have not gone out for a bond. That's something that we are going to be asking to do to tackle some of these larger projects because we have been kind of bumping them down waiting for a bigger decision. I'm not sad that we've waited for a bigger decision. I think these are important town decisions. But if we are talking about changing the outlay of buildings, I know right now when we left the ECC and moved out of the ECC, one of our concerns, our primary concern about the ECC was not the annual operating costs, which were $350,000. It was knowing that eventually that building would need a new building, and that eventually that building would need a new boiler, as all was outlined in the report. It's a building that got a lot of work in 2026 right now. The other thing that I've given you just as an explanation is this document I put together. I'm also going to put this on our website. I just made this today. And this explains to members of the community the difference between our 5-year capital plan and our facilities study. And I think it's important because if someone were to go through the facilities study and ask some questions and then maybe, post some questions on Facebook, they're going to find that there are differences between the facilities study and the 5-year capital plan. So just to highlight that, the facilities study went out till 2055. So far beyond 5 years. It was really about systematic life cycle projections and was really strictly core infrastructure. It was about bonds and state grants. Our 5-year capital plan talks about immediate repairs, equipment, mandates. It also talks about using things like the operating budget, E-rate, and the DRIP grant. And it talks about things in our capital improvement plan like vehicles, which are not anywhere in the other plan. The other plan also doesn't cover technology, computers, special education technology. Those are all things that are in there. So really we're talking about immediate needs versus theoretical life cycle. And that's the difference between the two plans. I would also say that when the facility study made projections of items, it was projecting the highest possible cost. I'll give you my favorite item in the facility study. Natasha and I were having a chuckle about it on Friday. I said I was going to mention it. The facility study talks about a need eventually for new bleachers in the high school auditorium. Its recommended replacement for that in about 2036 is automated electric high school bleachers to the tune of $750,000. I don't know of a location short of UConn that has electric bleachers, certainly at a high school in the state of Connecticut. I would also say that our high school custodial staff is fantastic, taking very good care of those bleachers, which is incredibly impressive if you listen to how hard the students banged on them in the last 2 weeks during the playoffs. But those bleachers are in great shape. Those bleachers are not even on our radar right now as something that needs replacement, but the cycle does suggest a replacement in the next 15 years to the tune of $750,000. So those are the things that we make adjustments to based on the recommendations, but it is very good to have that recommendation report. So you'll see some of those slight differences. I would also note that that recommendation report was done 3 years ago, and that our team is keeping track of those things that we've already made changes to and repairs to, such as the rooftop units at the high school, and everyone here knows that we're repairing a heater unit on top of Shepherd Hills cafeteria, so those are the sort of things that we're doing on a regular basis. But this document, which talks about key overlap and other pieces, the HVAC cycle, the fire alarm system, the boiler replacement, technology servers, all of that's explained in this. And I'm going to add this to our document because a question came to me about the difference, and I thought I would highlight that here. Kevin, I think that is the last. So really, key pieces. The idea is to ask you for assistance in ensuring that we're planning the best for our overall infrastructure, so that we're planning that together as a town. And when we do that, we can leverage the 74%. And if we need to do a major project, we really need that 2 years in advance. So if we're thinking, if this group makes the decision that Plainfield needs to build a new $60 million middle school, I see eyes get big, but if you make that decision, understand that that's probably a 5-year out decision with at least 2 years required before state approval, and we have to secure that money 2 years in advance. I know I've just said a lot. I said I would be short. Thank you for your time. Thank you all for volunteering.
Questions now?
Absolutely.
Okay, can an HVAC system change priorities? So if we planned out say 2 years from now, or even 4 years from now, whatever, if one breaks, can it change priority with state funding?
We can go after systems earlier. The
If
state.
something breaks tomorrow, and because I'm supposed to be here for a while.
So the state's really looking for us to tackle replacement projects. The system's not really set for small breaks. So if I have a heater in a classroom that breaks, the state system is not set up for me to submit $5,000 for that break. That's what their intention of the DRIP, the District Repair and Improvements, is. The state is saying if you plan ahead and do larger projects and plan for the projects, we're going to reward your planning by reimbursing. If you don't plan ahead and things are breaking on you, you kind of eat that yourself. So we're trying to plan ahead.
Okay, that was my question.
So the system's not set up for the rooftop unit at Shepherd Hill, which broke. I'm not going to say we are going to try to save it. We absolutely planned for that. But it's not really set up for repairs. It's designed to be proactive.
That was my question, because I know some of our systems are hanging on by their last leg, literally.
And in earnesty, there are some school systems that actually approach that as a strategy, saying that they are not going to invest until they get to bond, because then they'll go to a longer piece. We've been trying to maintain the systems as we go, and fortunate to have people like Paul Kadowski who have a lot of skills and are able to. Paul, how long have you been in district?
30 years, but I did start in 1984.
So our facilities director has 30 years at these systems, so he can tell me stories about the way things have been repaired that no one else can. For the heaters at Plainfield Memorial School, we actually found someone in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, who worked for the original factory who made them, who is rebuilding the insides of them and sending them to us. But that's not a long-term plan.
No, but I hear he's the master.
I have a lot of good people.
My question in that though is how efficient is this? Right, all of these repairs and rebuilds and breakdowns and more repairs.
It's not.
Right.
And even to highlight that, the systems we're using are not efficient.
Right.
The electric heaters we're using are not as efficient as some of the other systems. They are costing us more in electricity, which is why we're looking at doing a repair cycle. It's just a matter of the town deciding how we want to tackle it and the pace at which we want to do. I would advocate that I think we need all the schools we currently have, or if we were to make a change to one of the schools, we need 16 classrooms at Shepherd Hill.
Could you highlight on the pre-K kindergarten when you were going over that portion of it, where you have the track?
If you take a look at the 5-year plan,
Right.
and you take a look at where those pieces are, the athletics, I apologize, I've got to look at the sheets in front of me.
So where you have in 2029, 30 athletics, and then 30, 31 the HVAC pre-K through 3rd.
So the HVAC pre-K through 3rd, what you're seeing there is you're seeing Shepherd Hill and Moosup. And those numbers that we have, 2.5 million at Shepherd Hill and 1.736 million. Those numbers actually came from an HVAC study that I had done in 2022 that's also on our website that predicted what they believe those costs would be.
So you think there's more of a priority for the athletics with the track than there is in addressing as far as the priority?
No, I wouldn't say there's more priority. I would say that the question floating out in the community seems to be related to pre-K 3 schools, so I put that the farthest out to give the community the most time to have that conversation. If this committee solves that piece, you would probably see me go to the board of ed and advocate for combining more of those projects to have them done as early as possible. for the efficiency, and yes, you'd see that.
Also, those aren't, those don't get 75%. Those track and stuff like that, that doesn't get reimbursed.
The athletic field will not.
Right.
Which is why a community donor who cared a lot would be great there.
Here's it up.
And again, I would say that the Board of Ed cares greatly about these projects and is open to feedback of this committee.
Anybody else ask a question? To next year's fiscal budget? We could. If we wanted to, we'd have to secure the funds, and I would start looking at getting more solidified quotes if that was something people wanted to do. In earnesty, recognizing the rising costs of health insurance and everything, I was trying to deliver a budget under 4%. We cut 16 positions to get there, so I didn't want to add a large capital project as well.
I think right now it's doing moving parts with the capital improvement and now we're looking at CNR creation. I do know that that's in the first year, but I think for next year.
I was just thinking the number would be not so great next year.
The numbers would be more balanced. They would.
Can you speak up to your mic because we can't hear what you're saying now?
I mean, ideally, it would have been nice. I've been attending meetings since 2015 in HVAC, been a conversation that we need to start looking at set asides for our larger projects. So we're putting money into the side every year. You know, so all of a sudden it's not after 30 years we have this huge bonding issue. So we know it's an issue. Thank you very much for all your work on this.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. So then there's no more questions? Where's our guys on the switch? Who's back there? Where's Kevin? He's hiding.
It's kind of like the Wizard of
I'm in
Oz.
the back.
Kind of like that.
He's a wizard.
He's a wizard, right? All right. So the next presentation, Mr. Cunningham, the first selectman.
I'll take care of it from here.
Okay.
It's okay.
You'll take care of it.
Yep, I got it.
This is all.
So you have in your packet, I appreciate the opportunity to speak. You have in your packet two things that I gave you. One was the presentation. The other one is actually this particular capital improvement, capital strategic planning committee policy. And we're still trying to talk to with the Board of Selectmen and then bring forth to your group so that we can actually have something to talk about with structure. And so my presentation is actually from that structure for the strategic plan with a purpose that the thought is for the comprehensive look at future capital needs of the town of Plainfield, including municipal and educational facilities, and to develop a coordinated long-term, you'll notice there's going to be hearing this a lot, 10-year plan. Because we need to have capital strategy consistent with the town charter and adopt the finance policies. That committee shall function in an advisory capacity and shall not supersede and modify the authority of the first selectman, board of selectmen, board of finance, and the town meeting as established under the town charter. So there are objectives of the committee to evaluate the current and future needs of all municipal and educational buildings, to conduct or coordinate building assessments and condition evaluations, develop a rolling 10-year capital planning framework for advisory purposes with a minimum 5-year capital improvement plan prepared in accordance to the town charter 10-5. We'd like to establish project prioritization criteria, to recommend actionable next steps to address maintenance, upgrades, and new project needs, to develop a bonding strategy that balances the fiscal responsibility with the infrastructure needs, to promote informed, collaborative decision-making, ensure clear and transparent communication with the public regarding capital planning. Now, the committee shall have a building assessment and long-term planning. We want to conduct, coordinate the evaluations, of all municipal and educational buildings, review those conditions, the maintenance history, the capital needs, develop a prioritized rolling 10-year capital plan framework with at least that 5-year capital improvement plan that follows the Charter 10.5, and then recommend phased implementation strategies. I think what you heard tonight from the Board of Education was a great start to that.
So hold on, he's going in, he's reading from the capital improvement policy as well as peppering in the sort of says purpose on the paper, you guys know that. He's going back and forth and back and forth. That's why it's confusing. He's not strictly reading from the purpose and objective. He's got the capital improvement policy over here, and he's got the purpose and other things kind of peppered in and tied together.
It should have a single page that has two sides to it.
Yes, but you also are referring to the capital policy, improvement policy,
Which is this is what exactly is pulled
I
from.
get that, but it's confusing the board.
Doesn't have this one thing, doesn't have the capital.
Okay, there's plenty of those here. That's done. Okay. You have the other one?
Yes.
Okay, making sure. Everybody else set? Joe, you have both?
I don't have that one.
The purpose one? Okay, there's the purpose. Plenty of purpose ones as well.
Thank you.
Anybody else? So you have, everybody has the capital improvement policy and the top thing that says purpose.
Yes.
Okay, continue, Kevin, thank you.
Okay. So the top of the page says capital improvement planning. So we're trying to align with these long-term capital plans with the town-adopted capital improvement policy. We're trying to identify the estimated project costs and timing. Recommend funding strategies, including but not limited to capital non-recurring fund, a capital improvement program, which is LoCIP, and then bonding pursuant to Chapter 109 of the Connecticut statutes, and if available, grants and other lawful funding sources. The bonding strategy and financial planning has to develop the recommendations for a comprehensive bonding strategy. We have to evaluate the debt impact, the affordability, intergenerational equity. We want to coordinate this with a director of finance and to assess the fiscal impact. I think you heard earlier the superintendent mentioned the fact that there has not been a new bond for quite some time. So that's why we have to kind of plan it and work together with what the needs are. And all of this has to have public communication, transparency. We want to promote that transparency in capital planning process. You want to provide clear and understandable communication to the public. And we want to support the informed community with their engagement. We want to foster collaboration amongst town officials, school representatives, and the residents. And for the plan, we'll go back to that issue with the 10 years. The committee shall develop and maintain a rolling 10-year capital strategic framework for the planning purposes, and in accordance with section 10.5 of the charter, with a formal capital improvement plan that we submit to the Board of Finance that shall include a 5-year minimum. The 10-year plan framework is advisory and does not replace the charter. And this is where we really need to work together for the funding. The committee shall recommend appropriate funding sources for each proposed capital project. The identification of a funding source within the capital strategy shall not constitute appropriation or authorization of expenditure. And there is a list there for what this has to entwine, which is the expenditure decisions via the charter, 2.4, 2.5, 10.2, and 10.4. And then reports. Reporting should be that the committee shall provide recommendations and periodic updates to the First Selectman and Board of Selectmen, and that the committee shall also provide informational updates to the Board of Finance in advance of the annual budget process to support that review for the capital improvement via the charter. And then nothing herein shall be construed to alter the authority of the Board of Finance or town meeting. So what we're trying to do is, very simply, work together make a plan that's going to work for 10 years, and it's a rolling plan for every 10 years. If you decide something is taken off of that because of funding that were available to make some upgrades, I'll use the example of HVAC. If we're able to go out the bond and make that funding available, then obviously it rolls off for this next 10 years. And we move on to the next thing of priority. We'd like to work with the finance director on this one. So if there's any needs or support you need from the finance director, they'll be there at these meetings and help as we go. And that is it. Are there questions?
Yeah. You're reading off a capital improvement policy that hasn't been approved by the Board of Selectmen as a whole.
Correct. We're working on this right now. That's our plan.
We got that.
So you have there was actually a packet. I'm hoping all members got this.
They all got it. Don't worry.
Well, the five plans. There's the procurement policy, the capital improvement policy, this policy, which is capital strategic planning committee, the capital non-recurring fund policy, and then the town road fund policy.
It's underneath finance on the,
Capital governance framework.
yeah. Underneath the finance, if you go onto the website, it's underneath the finance, and there's 5 documents there.
And I would just ask one thing: if you're asking a question, you make sure your microphone is on and up close.
So anyway, this hasn't been,
Correct. It has not been approved. You asked me what I'd like to be able to produce and work together with, and that's what I'd like to do.
I think we were looking more for an idea of what Paul did on, like, what is your needs? What are the needs of the town as far as buildings, like for this building or any other buildings that concern, some numbers. I have in front of me the 5-year capital improvement plan, things to that effect. You know, in the next 10 years, you have a 5-year capital improvement plan here, but in the next 10 years, what are your immediate needs?
That would come from the assessment of all the buildings.
Okay.
And then once we get those assessments, then we can actually categorize and put them in a priority order, just like the Board of Education was doing with their buildings.
But you have one at the town hall here. Could you tell us a little something about what are some of the priorities that are needed here at the town hall?
The assessment that was done in the town hall, we had addressed almost all of those issues. There are very few that are left, which is great. Can't think of things that are really high priced at this time. Most of them all small items.
So the things that were in when the town hall was assessed have been taken care of. There's no immediate need.
I can get you a list of the next meeting of what the items are.
Well, that would have been nice for tonight. Hope next meeting would be great. I'm sure you're on the agenda.
Kevin, I have a question on the policy. Is there a reason for policy instead of just like a guideline or guidance? Because I'm just wondering, like, there's other appointed committees and they don't have policies, or is this like something new you're starting or trying to implement from this committee going forward with committees?
It's something that Lisa put together as a guidance for everybody on your board, your committee.
But there's a difference between guidance and a policy. So that's why I'm asking, and are like all of the appointed committees going forward going to be having policies outlining what they're...
No, I think these are the 5 that we wanted to address first.
Okay, thank you.
Lisa put this together?
Yes.
I can see that you all have copies of the next meeting if you want copies. They're on the website, they're underneath finance, and if you go down, they're all listed right there. Tonight's meeting was just basically to find out what the town and the town hall and everything needed versus, and the Board of Ed needed as priorities, secondary, that type of thing.
Is it also my understanding that the Board of Selectmen is looking for feedback from this committee as to how we feel about the policy being voted on by them? If either Kevin can speak on that, and I see that Tom is here tonight.
Yeah, so that was brought up at a recent selectmen's meeting that, we can of course go to a future meeting coming up and we can adopt this at any time as a board of selectmen. But if there's any areas of concern from any members on this particular policy, this proposal, we would love to hear. We know that not everyone here can always make it to selectmen meetings, but we would love to hear them because if there's no objections and if it seems fine as is, then board of selectmen can certainly move forward to adopt it. But once we adopt it and it becomes policy, then that's the case. Doesn't mean we can't revisit it down the road, but from whatever that time frame is from when it takes effect and it's adopted, then it's a policy that needs to be followed. So that was just a thought of feedback, if any, from them.
One of my things were, at the meeting, board policy and guidance were bantered around all the same sentence. And I want to make it very clear that once you do a policy, it is a policy that you have to follow. If it's guidance, as you go back and look at the video, Kevin said it, guidance. So, is this a policy or is this a guidance? There are two different distinct definitions.
We're looking at it as a policy.
Okay, because that's not what you said when you were sitting here. Can I ask, have you presented these to the other policies?
I couldn't quite hear what you said.
There's 5 of them on Lisa's website under finance.
Yep, we will be talking about those at the next Board of Selectmen meeting. And we'll be talking about those hopefully to move some forward, but actually have more discussion on each one.
Excuse me, Penny, John had something he wanted to, you have anything to know, John?
For example, we might want to consider 20 years.
Maybe we'll bring them.
There may be a consideration to go 20-year plan for what Plainfield might need. And if it's going to be a policy, that kind of obviates that if it's going to only be 10-year rolling. I think there should be more flexibility on that. So that's why I'm looking at it as more of a guidance. We may come up after reviewing some of the initial plans and initial fixes that we're going to be looking at for current buildings. We might look at a longer-term plan for Plainfield, given some of the data that comes in. And if we're going to stick to this particular objective as a policy, that might be more difficult to do. If it's more of a guideline, then we can change it. Or we could have to, how would it be changed in the future? If we were to do.
Policies are reviewed, supposed to be reviewed every year. Am I correct, Kevin?
If you have input for the Board of Selectmen to make modifications at a later time, we can do
Right,
that.
once the policy is adopted, you have to bring it forward.
But if you can give us the input now, it would be a good time.
Do that. So I'll put something together and give it to the selectmen.
I just think the policy is premature for this committee.
My other concern with vote on this policy is that I was reading through the Connecticut handbook that Lisa and I have spoken on and been going back and forth on. Sorry she couldn't be here tonight because she could attest to some of what they have in this handbook. And one of the things that they discuss in the handbook is planning commission and our plan of conservation and development. And a lot of towns have where when they have a capital strategic policy committee, they not only work with the Board of Finance, but they work in conjunction with planning so that if there's any new bills that this committee decides, the Planning Commission is made aware that they may have something in the Plan of Conservation and Development. A lot of bills require permits, so they recommend having the planning and zoning involved in this. So I was happy to see that Ryan was here tonight, but I didn't know if going forward we were going to be working more with planning. So if that's not implemented in the policy, is that going to be down the road restrictive for us that we won't be able to, or we have to come back to the men to add? So I don't know. More discussion here for me on this policy. That's what I would say. And maybe looking at some of what the other towns have done and working in conjunction with, if they have capital strategic planning, how are they working with the other boards and commissions? Because this is a lot for us to have for direction going forward without having input with the Board of Finance, the planning. So that was kind of my thought process.
Anybody else?
I think I'd rather have not say policy.
I-
It seems to restrict us, that's all. So
Guidance?
I'd rather have guidance.
I'd rather have the word guidance. I don't think,
Yeah.
I think at this early juncture of our committee, I think that policy is way premature. Okay? You can't possibly know, or none of us are psychic, nor are we Karnak, that we're gonna know down the road, when, as this committee gets up and running, what it is that we're going to need to do, what kind of time frame we're gonna, we don't know. So to put this kind of, restriction in a policy is very premature. That's my thoughts on it. Anybody else? Okay, I have another question, Kevin. On your 5-year capital plan, just to go back to that, because we jumped the gun when you did this for the agenda. On some of the things that you're looking to do in the 5-year capital plan, do you have any estimates on when you, like, for instance, if you want to do something over at Lions Park and that type of thing, do you have any estimates in the 5-year plan on upkeep, maintenance, operating costs, and that type of thing when you look for these 5-year capital improvement plans?
You're talking about like any building,
Anything that-
any particular building?
Yeah, anything that you're planning you want to be doing in the next 5 years, because that's all this does here,
Mhm.
and that's kind of why we need this committee. Do you have, when you're putting together the 5-year capital your plan, do you factor into that anywhere the upkeep, the maintenance cost, and operating expenses to that?
And in the buildings that we have right now, yes, but we can go a little more extensive in the future.
So that's very important, that if we're going to do something, we figure out how much is this going to cost us going down the road and into the future, and how much it's going to cost us, not only what it's going to cost us to put up, what's it going to cost us in maintenance, operating fees, and that type of thing. So you do or you don't?
We don't have a full extensive one for all of our buildings.
You have, for some of the things on the 5-year capital plan? No?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that one.
I said, on your 5-year capital improvement plan, which I have here, do you have, on any of the things that you have on here, do you have estimate on once you put, just for instance, public works, I'm just picking that out, just because it's the first thing I looked at, on a boom truck, when you're putting, how much it's going to cost for a boom truck, do you figure out how much the upkeep, the maintenance, and all that is going to cost us to keep that thing on the road? That's just an example.
We don't do a full, like a boom truck. We purchase a boom truck.
Mhm.
We don't have that in this year, but we do have it filtered into the following years,
Into the budget?
in the budgets.
Again, at the next meeting, I'll put you on the agenda, if you could do a little more in-depth detail of what some of the town's needs are, with a little bit of expenses and, stuff that, give us an idea of what we're looking at here. This was a very big in general presentation that I think we need a lot more from your side, details on. I don't know very well what this policy says, I don't know. And like you said, the town hall is mostly finished from what's in this binder, so that's a good thing to know.
Yeah, Kevin, so do the department heads or maintenance, I don't know what the chain of command is, so, like, are there routine maintenance reports as to, like, what each building is experiencing? Maybe, Paul, you could even speak on that, like, do you keep reports on where everything is at in school buildings?
Each individual school needs that.
So, like, you know the HVAC, but like, okay, is there something that you have a schedule of like repairs that might be coming, or things of that nature.
So I think the advantage we have is that we had the school facility study done a few years ago, and when that happened, everything that you have is digital. So when we fix something, we have the ability to go into the system and say we replaced this part. It's actually called AMS, Asset Management System. So we can say we replaced this boiler, we can take a picture of the new boiler, upload it, say the date we did it, and then it automatically calculates end of life. It tells us that we do that. So that's a piece of software we're using.
Right, I understand that. I guess my question is more like my house every year. I have my furnace service, right? And I kind of have a good idea every year, like what is that going to cost me? Things of that nature. So like kind of a general idea of what are the repairs that might be coming, what are the upkeep costs.
Preventative maintenance that needs
Preventative,
to
things
happen.
that you know in a maintenance report. So you might have to let Mr. Brenton know throughout the year. Like, okay, I gave you this as my cost for my department for what we're going to need.
Yes.
But additional things are also going to have to come for next year because this is getting kind of old.
That's part of our municipal budgeting process every year.
Are there reports though? Like, do you keep any kind of notes for yourself?
Well, for instance, like when you have your boilers cleaned, they always put tags of when things were done, who it was serviced by, and then you get an invoice or you get a report that they actually put in it, and you put that in the file. So if somebody said, hey, when's the last time your Shepherd Hill boiler was cleaned?
Right.
I can just look back at the file and show the actual service guy's report that he had made up when it was fixed.
The reason why I'm stating this, Kevin, is because the last meeting, unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend. There was discussion of where are the fires. And this board has no way of knowing that, right? I don't know what's broke at the rec center or what's broke up at the highway department necessarily. I don't know what is a priority fix. So I think this board is lacking in that kind of information. Hopefully the department has.
For the Board of Ed, Paul and his team conduct walkthroughs. That last page, which is not part of the capital plan, which I indicated those items are, I would say that is our priority list.
Okay. Okay, that helps to have.
I don't know that I would use the word fires.
Right.
Because
Right.
Yeah, we don't like that word fire.
Right. That's a term, but you know what the priority of needs are going to be. We really need to have that. Not only for the school, I would like to actually have that from all department heads that are going to be coming, because we don't have that. We don't know what the priorities are, or at least I know I don't. I know that I've been driving around and taking a look at some things since I got put on this committee, and I can say there's definitely some concerns I've been seeing, so, and that's only from looking at the outside of stuff.
I believe that was the intent with getting the different reports from the department heads. And if I may, Mr. Brenton, as a point of clarification here, how many of these items didn't come up on the feasibility study?
I would say 90% of them came up on the feasibility study. The feasibility didn't really cover the field very well, but the feasibility study's been a pretty good predictor.
Very good, thank you. So we did still have a good amount of things that weren't there. It wouldn't show up on there, that we just knew about through our systemic walkthroughs, reports from.
Well, I'm not singling out just the school. I remember Paul was here,
Yes.
so we could take advantage of his
And we have-
knowledge.
No, absolutely, and
I have a monthly meeting.
Right, exactly.
So just for some internal controls on that, Mr. Kadowski does regular meetings during the month with our business manager to look at budgets and where things are, and then I have a monthly meeting with him where we review projects, and then we have an annual facilities walkthrough. At one time, I invited a lot of people on these, but it was still just a few of us, where we walk through and take a look at everything and highlight items. And there are several people here, I think you've joined me in the past. There are several people who have been part of those facility walkthroughs, so we do those on an annual basis.
You know, I just know, like, from a home perspective, you know, I I know what repairs are gonna be having to be done sooner than later. So I think we need a general list from all the departments moving forward, Kevin, so that way we're better prepared to start addressing what are the immediate needs and what are the long-term goals.
And we do have scheduled maintenance on different issues, like we do the boiler inspections done by the state. We have inspections by different HVAC companies that come in on a regular basis, and we track all of that.
Do you do the walkthroughs, facilities walkthroughs?
Quarterly, I do a walkthrough.
You do, but I mean, is there a number of eyes on that?
We have 2 people over do the walkthrough.
Who goes with you? Who goes with you?
That would be for this building, it would be Ron. He's in charge of whatever buildings that are there, or highway department, I go up there once in a while to check with the other highway supervisor and other staff.
So we don't have one person like Mr. Kadowski who looks at everything and looks at all the town buildings other than the school, obviously, and has meetings and knows where everything sits.
Correct. We do not.
You do the walkthrough?
Yes.
When's the last time you went to the PD?
Haven't. Ron's supposed to be doing those. Same thing with sewer.
That's good, he's coming up to the board, maybe he can give us some light on that. Because we definitely need much more information. I mean, it's not just for this building alone. There should be more than one person doing the walkthrough with one other person. And there should be someone who also has all the town buildings.
Yeah, it sounds like we were talking about general building maintenance. And that's, it's not strategic planning at all. It's just, it's maintenance. A lot of the 5-year things are going to be maintenance, and they're going to be funded by our current budget. So those are 2 separate functions that I think this board has been tasked to do. So we have a lot of data on what the buildings need. Some of the key buildings like the ECC and the town hall and others. There's the animal control building that needs work, and there's.
Right, we know what the work is, but I want more of an understanding of, like, when I go to the animal control, what's the immediate need, what's the immediate repair, and a list, so that this board has a comprehensive understanding of what needs to be addressed, maybe this year, are we going into next year? We need to have some direction, because right now, we're just kind of floundering out here, looking very unorganized, and that's not working.
Well, one approach is that we may in fact have to get that information ourselves. Because one of the questions I had is, how was this done before this committee was formed? Well, that's exactly right. So I think maybe we need to look at possibility of those key buildings that we know are issues that we take it on and find out, just get the data
I
on.
think it might be a good idea, Peggy, to see if, I understand you're not gonna have 11 people going to all these buildings and disrupting people in their workday, but it might be something for us to discuss, like, if certain members wanted to basically, maybe 2 or 3, to have some knowledge in looking at the buildings, might wanna schedule with each department and building to take and walk through and come back to us and say, hey, I spoke, or I went and looked at, or are we going to be requesting from the department head when they come in front of us that they bring the lists? Because we need to have
I think
that.
that we definitely, in talking to them, there'd be no reason for them to come here if they weren't gonna tell us what that list of their first priorities.
Well, I can tell you so who takes care of the park over in Warren, Kevin?
The recreation department, and they have assistance with the either highway or the department here for the building.
Well, I can tell you, whoever is supposed to be taking care of that, there's some serious issues, because I was over there. We have a swing that is not even safe for a baby to be put on. There's no harness, there's no restraint on it. I have photos. I went there last week and did a walkthrough. The playscape, there's unsafe issues going on. There's rocks coming up out of the ground. So that's just one area, and I think we need to make sure we're getting proper reports and proper feedback on, and if our department heads are busy and they can't take the time to do that, maybe one of the volunteers on this committee wants to, I don't know.
Well, we can definitely request some walkthroughs, but I think that takes us into the discussion of the RFP facility studies. That is a facility study that we were looking at making it, having an RFP on. Am I wrong about, what conditions are these buildings in?
Correct. Do you have our RFPs in front of you?
We have, no,
Shannon wrote them up. I thought she'd give them to you.
no, we don't have any of that.
All right, I'll make sure they're emailed to you.
Okay, definitely, we need the RFP so that we can look at it to see, if any of our questions need to be addressed. It's just like the ones that were here now. So I would definitely table the discussion of the RFP facility studies until we get that from Shannon.
Are you looking for a
I'm
motion?
not, sorry, yes, I am, I know.
All right, I'll make a motion that we table discussion on the RFP until our next month meeting, when we have the RFP reports in front of us.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Also, I did make a mistake on here. I didn't put in, to approve previous minutes. So, I'd like to table, or make a motion, we table that till next meeting. So sorry.
But usually there is one change that needs to be made to the minutes, and it's the adjournment time.
Yeah, and also,
Or the start time, one or the other, I don't know which.
the end time was 6:50.
I just had one question for Kevin, that
Okay.
will tell me.
Sorry.
Is there a possibility of getting a list of all of the town buildings and everything, including like pump stations, everything that the town owns? So that way we know what we're be looking at?
John has that.
Okay,
I do.
So, I mean, I would like to get one from Kevin as well.
okay.
John has that. So I can email that to everyone. He put that together at the last meeting, but it wasn't on the agenda. But Kevin, if you could get one of those from you, that would be great, in case there's something that John's missed. Maybe for the next meeting? When you bring your list of what we need to do, what we don't need to do, that type of thing.
I still think we gotta prioritize our decision, or not so much decision, but we'll go back to the fire drill thing,
The problem is, John, we can't prioritize right now because we don't know what are the most eminent needs and, you know what I mean?
well, we know that the ECC building is a big thing, it's probably one of the most,
So would you like to address that first? I mean,
that would be, that would be my thought, would be put that fire out first. I know you guys don't like old fires.
You're giving this house a nightmare.
I know the public is more interested in what that building is. If the building's worth saving, then we're saving it. If it's not worth saving, we're selling it.
Right, but how do we know that without a facilities study?
Well, we have a study.
Is that, Paul, is that a facility study, or was that a?
We have a full facility
Yes.
study of the ECC, and I actually believe, if I'm remembering correct, the town had an additional something done.
You had a facility study done already through the Board of Education,
Yeah.
so that was in that big packet that you had copied over.
Yep, it's in your binder.
Yeah, I understand that. I didn't say we didn't have one. I'm just saying we should pay attention to that. And if we gotta do something, we're doing nothing.
So why don't we make a motion, because we have discussion, so Joe wants to do this, so do you want to make a motion to schedule for like a walkthrough? Do you want to do a walkthrough, do you want to go in there and take a look and come back to us?
I'm good with it. I'm familiar with the building, I've been in it, done work there. I think,
Well, one of the things that was said in one of our other meetings was we wanted to add the ECCs to the facility report.
It's just one of the parts.
Yeah, one of the big things that everybody was adamant about was adding the ECC to the facility study, the RP to the facility study. I mean, I
Now, Kevin, I know you stated in last night at the Board of Finance meeting that there were some issues recently at the ECC. Could you go over those with this board tonight for us, please?
Sure. We had a couple of issues over there. One was that boiler we talked about before, pretty much on its last legs and shut off over the weekend. We tried to get someone in to do some service on it. They looked at it and there was an electronic issue with it. They finally got it up and running. There's still concerns on it continuing to run, but we do check on a regular basis. And also the sprinkler system had compressors, both compressors that shut, so you had water flowing all the way through the system. So they finally were able to fix one, and the other one's being fixed early next week.
Because we talked about, calling a vote, and somebody said it was already completed.
Well, the thing is that we're supposed to get copies of the RFPs, but we didn't get them.
We don't know the RFPs.
Kevin's gonna make sure we get them for next month's meeting.
Is it out there? Kevin, is the RFP
He's
out
here.
I know she's got the RFPs, but I can run downstairs and ask her if she can print some up or send them to you via email and take care of that right away.
Well, it should be on the website, right?
They should be, not on the website, they're waiting for you guys to vote on it.
Right. We don't know.
Are they here tonight? Are they here? Do you know where they are?
I'm gonna go down and see if she's still in her meeting and ask her, make sure she gets them out right away.
Peggy, why don't we make a motion to recess for 5 to 10 minutes? I'll make a motion that we recess for 10 minutes to give Kevin time to go see if he can get us the RFPs right now.
Second.
All in favor? You're back in at 7:42, Linda? 7:41. Yeah, that sounds good. 7:41, we start, we're back at 7:43. He just came and told me that he doesn't have it. He doesn't have the copy of the RFP. So that being said, let's table the discussion of the RFP. He's going to send it to me and I will distribute it out as soon as I get it in my house and land. Again, definitely can't do anything without having the RFP. Done. Anything else?
So we're still in a discussion, Peggy. Gary has sent correspondence to the board. Do you want to take an opportunity to read what he had to say?
Yes.
I do. I have it.
I have it here. It is on my
Point of order, Madam Chair. This is a letter from a
Gary.
committee member that's not
Gary
here.
Salbert. He wanted us to read it into the record for him.
It's his opinion on the buildings and what he would like to ultimately take and see for direction.
I would propose that he can make that statement the next time he's here.
No problem. All right.
We can't very well have a discussion with the letter. if we
Without
have
him being here,
questions.
that's all, his opinion. Good point. All right. Is there anything else for discussion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.